The final choice: retire or wait for death. My name is Quang, 55 years old, and throughout my life, I had never considered early retirement. Work was not just a job for me, it was my passion, the reason I woke up every morning. I was someone who never gave up, someone who gave my all to the company, my colleagues, and most importantly, my family. No matter what, I always prided myself on being able to endure anything, to overcome any hardship with willpower and resilience. But now, I've realized that something terrifying is waiting for me, something born from my own stubbornness. It all began on a winter morning. I woke up feeling something was wrong. My legs weren't as quick as they used to be, my head constantly throbbed, like some invisible force was pressing down on my mind. However, I didn't pay much attention. Work was still waiting for me. Despite doctors advising me to rest, I couldn't. I only had one thought in my mind. I can do this. I can push through. But one day, I began to clearly feel the changes in my body. The headaches became more frequent. My heart would race, and sweat poured out despite the cool weather. My eyes were always bloodshot, exhausted. Yet, I kept working. I couldn't stop. Work was everything. Each day passed, and I was falling deeper into a work cycle without realizing that it was becoming the thing that would eventually kill me. One late evening, after a long and tiring day at work, I came home later than usual. When I walked into the living room, I saw a painting on the wall that I had never noticed before. It was a black and white portrait of a middle-aged man with a blurry face and deep, dark eyes staring straight at me. I didn't feel too strange about it, as there had always been old paintings in the house. However, there was a strange feeling that crept over me, a chill running down my spine that I couldn't explain, but I was too tired to care. I walked past and sat at my desk. Suddenly, I heard a strange whisper. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but then I realized it was a very clear voice. Quang. Quang. Retire now. Don't wait until it's too late. The eerie feeling made my hair stand on end. I sat frozen, my heart racing, but I didn't dare go outside to check. The feeling lingered with me all night long. It felt as though someone was watching me, staring at me from the shadows. The next morning, when I woke up, I went down to the living room and noticed something strange. The painting had disappeared. In its place, there was a thin sheet of paper taped to the wall, with words written in dark red ink, almost like blood. If you don't retire, you will pay the price. My head spun. I tried to convince myself that it was just a prank, but a deep sense of unease started to grow inside me. The next day, strange events continued. Objects in the house suddenly changed position, things I couldn't explain. Soft footsteps at night, strange noises from the hidden corners of the house made it impossible for me to sleep. But I still didn't stop. Work was still waiting for me. I knew I was exhausted, but I couldn't rest, because I thought, if I stopped, everything would fall apart. One day, when I arrived at the office, I found a black envelope placed on my desk with no name on the sender. I opened it and found an old letter, the ink faded by time, but still readable. Remember, if you don't retire soon, something will come and take everything you love. Don't let yourself become the victim. Fear I couldn't shake off took hold of me. I started to feel a strange presence in my home. Everything became blurry, as if I was living in a nightmare I couldn't escape from. Sleepless nights turned into terrifying dreams. I saw myself being chased by a dark figure, running endlessly, but never escaping. Every time I turned back, it got closer. Its eyes, though blurry, shone brightly like flames. It was death waiting for me, just waiting for me to ignore the warning. One night, while working late, a sudden sharp pain hit me like lightning. My heart felt crushed. I collapsed to the floor, unable to breathe. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. They told me that I had gone into cardiac arrest. If no one had discovered me in time, I wouldn't be here anymore. When I returned home, I didn't dare to enter my office again. Everything seemed too late. I couldn't go back to work, even though the company kept calling and asking me to return. The thing that had haunted me, the thing I couldn't escape, was slowly breaking me down. I started to feel like a shadow that couldn't escape the death that was chasing me. I found an old post on a forum about people who had ignored the signs of when to retire and had to pay the price. One person had written, "Sometimes retirement is not the end, but the escape from a curse." Now, I understand that those words weren't an exaggeration. If you don't retire when your body is exhausted, you'll face things you never want to meet. Things that will haunt you forever, never forgetting. Now, I have to live with a fear that words can't express. I missed the chance to rest. I was too determined, too stubborn, and now I must pay the price for my wrong decision. Every day, I live in fear that death is coming closer to me because I didn't know when to stop. After I woke up in the hospital, the clarity I once had no longer brought me comfort. Although the doctors told me I was lucky to be alive, I felt like something was lingering around me, a strange feeling I couldn't put into words. It wasn't physical pain, but an eerie silence, a silence I couldn't escape. When I returned home, everything seemed to be back to normal, but I knew I was no longer myself. There were nights when I woke up in the middle of the night, eyes wide open, but unable to move. It felt as though someone was standing right next to me, staring at me, though I couldn't see anyone. An unexplainable coldness surrounded me, making me feel like I was sinking into an endless abyss. I clearly remember one night, when everything seemed to fade into darkness, I heard soft footsteps from the stairs. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the footsteps became clearer. I stood up and walked towards the living room door, my hands trembling as I opened it. There was no one there. But when I turned back, I saw a small painting hanging, almost as if it had just been placed there. It was a portrait of a man, his face blurry, his dark, hollow eyes staring directly at me. In the dim light of the night, those eyes seemed to be watching me, as if they could see straight through me, into the deepest part of my soul. The next day, I returned to the office, trying to work as usual. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop the panic that was building up. It felt like I was losing control of my own thoughts. The eyes of the man in the painting haunted me. Every time I turned around, I felt those deep, unblinking eyes staring at me, making me tremble with fear. At night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, gasping for breath, sweating. Suddenly, I heard a soft knock at the door. The knock was light but impossible to ignore. I stood up, opened the door, but found no one there. Only a black envelope on the doorstep with no name on it. I opened it and found a small card inside. It was handwritten. Quang, if you don't retire, the punishment will come closer. My mouth went dry. The feeling I had was beyond words. It felt like I was being pulled into an endless nightmare. I began researching stories of people who ignored health warnings about retirement. The stories I found online about hardworking people who pushed through and eventually paid the ultimate price for it made me uneasy. But I couldn't stop. I kept pushing myself, even though I knew my body was already worn out. Strangely, I couldn't stop. It was as if some invisible force was dragging me forward. I couldn't even tell the difference between day and night anymore. Every time I stepped into my house, it felt like someone was waiting for me, watching me. Sleepless nights became the norm, and I started hearing strange noises from everywhere in the house. First, soft footsteps, then whispers, and later, a sigh as though someone was standing right behind me. Each time I turned around, nothing was there, but the feeling only grew stronger. My health didn't improve. I felt tired, aching, but the work never stopped. My eyes were always bloodshot, with no time for rest. I felt like a puppet, controlled by my habits and the endless work. One weekend, when I returned home late, I noticed something strange. A door in my house was open, and I was sure I had closed it when I left. I walked closer, and just as I was about to close the door, I saw a shadowy figure standing there. The eyes of the man in the painting appeared before me. His eyes shone bright, staring straight at me. I felt paralyzed, unable to move. A sharp pain shot up my spine, like someone was squeezing my heart. I screamed, but no sound came out. I fell to the floor, but it felt like an invisible hand was pulling me up, forcing me to stand. I couldn't move, but the man's eyes were still fixed on me, growing closer, as if he wanted to take my soul. The next morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar room, not a hospital, but a place I didn't recognize. It was an old, dimly lit room. Every wall was covered in dust, and the old wooden tables smelled of mold. I stood up and walked out. The world around me seemed frozen in time. I was confused, unsure of where I was. When I went back home, I realized something terrifying had changed. The objects in my house didn't look the same. A chair I often sat in was gone, replaced by a small table on which there was an old photo. It was a picture of my family, but in the photo, I no longer recognized myself. My face was blurry, unidentifiable. The eyes in the photo were the same as the man's eyes in the painting. I felt like my energy had been drained, trapped in a world with no escape. Day by day, I couldn't escape the nightmares, the strange sounds, the shadows following me all the way to my office. The sharp pains kept tormenting me, but I couldn't rest. I couldn't face the reality that I had ignored the warnings. The reminders to retire, to take care of my health, now seemed too late. I no longer had the strength to confront it. Something was taking over me, turning me into a shadow of myself, and it wouldn't let go until I faced the truth. Death wasn't the end, it was part of a game from which I couldn't withdraw.